The third part of axillary artery runs from the lower border of P minor to lower border of teres major. That's the extent. Now, this part of the artery has several relations. The anterior relation is formed by pectoralis major and also deep fascia. Now, the posterior relation is formed by one is already running on those muscles that form the floor of the posterior wall of the axilla. And those muscles that form the posterior wall of the axilla are the subscapularis, the teres major, and latissimus dorsi. So this vessel is already running on those muscles that form the posterior wall of the axilla. Now, we see part of the posterior wall being the subscapularis. We also see teres major. Now, the cords of brachial plexus are still tagging along the axillary artery, but at this point, the cords can no longer be seen in the third part because they have already given off their terminal branches. So what we'll be seeing now will not be the cords, but the branches that come from these cords. Like in the posterior relation, we'll be seeing not the posterior cord now, but the branches from the posterior cord. And some of the branches we'll be seeing from this point, we'll be seeing the radial nerve, and we'll look at the lateral relation, the lateral relation. In the lateral relation, we'll be seeing the coracobrachialis. And now we see the branches that come from the lateral cord. We'll see the musculocutaneous nerve, and we'll see the lateral root of median nerve. So these structures will form the lateral relation. Now, for the medial relation, we'll still see the axillary vein. And then in addition to the axillary vein, we'll still see other branches from the medial cord of brachial plexus, some of which are the ulnar nerve, the medial cutaneous nerve of the arm, and the medial cutaneous nerve of the forearm. We will now study the branches that come from this third part. Now, in this third part, the third part has 3 branches. The third part has 3 branches. These branches are one, the anterior circumflex humeral artery. We have the posterior circumflex humeral artery. And then finally we have the subscapular artery. The subscapular artery. We will start with the anterior circumflex humeral artery. These are the structures. At this point, we are seeing the anterior. In this our diagram, we are seeing the anterior circumflex humeral artery looping round the shaft of humerus at the level of the surgical neck. We are seeing the posterior in dotted lines, and we are seeing the subscapular running distally. So these are the 3 branches, and then that's the head of the humerus. Now let's take the anterior circumflex humeral artery. The anterior circumflex humeral artery is the smaller of the 3 branches, the smallest of the 3 branches. Now it circles around laterally and anteriorly round the neck of the humerus at the level of the surgical neck, and as it runs across the basilar sulcus, it gives a branch. The name of that branch is called the ascending branch of the anterior circumflex humeral artery. That branch is part of the content of the basilar sulcus. Now, it ends by forming an anastomosis with the posterior circumflex humeral artery. So they form a circular loop around the neck, surgical neck of the humerus. So what the ascending branch from anterior circumflex humeral artery does is to run proximally through the groove, supplying both the humerus and the shoulder joint. We will look at the posterior circumflex humeral artery. The posterior circumflex humeral artery is bigger than the anterior circumflex humeral artery. Now, it winds posteriorly round the surgical neck of the humerus, passing through the quadrangular space alongside the axillary nerve. And then it ends by anastomosing with the anterior circumflex humeral artery. While it was doing that, it also gave a branch. Now, anterior circumflex humeral artery gave an ascending branch, while the posterior circumflex humeral artery gave a descending branch. Now, that descending branch will anastomose with a branch, an ascending branch from the brachial artery. It's actually a branch of brachial artery, which is the profunda brachial artery. So the descending branch coming from the descending branch of the posterior circumflex humeral artery will anastomose with an ascending branch coming from the profunda brachial artery. The posterior circumflex humeral artery will form part of the blood supply to the humerus, to the shoulder joint, and then the deltoid and all the muscles around the quadrangular space. We will look at the last branch, which is the subscapular artery. The subscapular artery is this artery. The subscapular artery is the biggest of the 6 branches. While the anterior circumflex humeral artery and posterior circumflex humeral artery actually emerged at a level towards the lower border of the subscapularis, this also picks origin from within the same region and begins to run on the subscapularis. It runs towards the inferior angle of the scapula. While it does that, it gives off its 2 terminal branches. These are those 2 terminal branches. The branch we have here, which is called the circumflex scapular artery, and then the branch that is going down towards the latissimus dorsi, which is called the thoracodorsal artery. These are the 2 terminal branches of the subscapular artery. Between these 2 terminal branches, the thoracodorsal artery runs as the distal continuation of the subscapular artery alongside thoracodorsal nerve. It is also the smaller of the 2 terminal branches. The circumflex scapular artery will pass through the upper triangular space. If we can recall, the nerve structure that passes through a triangular intermuscular space is the radial nerve, and that is the lower triangular space. The circumflex scapular artery passes through the upper triangular space and then accesses both the infraspinous fossa and the subscapular fossa as it gets prepared for the anastomosis that happens in the scapula. Next will be this anastomosis. If there is a problem between the first part of the subclavian artery and third part of axillary artery, there is a provision for collateral supply. That provision for collateral supply is the function of the scapular anastomosis. We will look at the scapular anastomosis. Now, the scapular anastomosis is the collateral route of blood supply between the first part of subclavian artery and the third part of axillary artery. So, what the advantage of this is, if there is a blockade between these 2 parts, this collateral supply will save the day. Now, let's look at the branches that are involved. The part of the branch of the subclavian artery involved in this anastomosis is the thyrocervical trunk. Thyrocervical trunk is one of the branches in the first part. Now, thyrocervical trunk will give rise to two branches that are involved in this supply. The first, this is thyrocervical trunk, that's the thyrocervical trunk. Thyrocervical trunk will give rise to two branches. The first branch is the suprascapular artery, that's the suprascapular artery. Suprascapular artery. And the second branch is the transverse cervical artery. Is the transverse cervical artery. So these two branches of the thyrocervical trunk will be involved in formation of the scapular anastomosis. Now, the transverse cervical artery will divide into two. We have the superficial branch, that's what we have here, that's the superficial branch, and then we have the deep branch, that's the deep branch of the transverse cervical artery. We're actually interested in the deep branch. Another name for deep branch of the transverse cervical artery is the dorsal scapular artery, because it's the artery that runs with the dorsal scapular nerve. Now, the suprascapular artery running down from the thyrocervical trunk will enter the upper border of the scapula, running across the transverse scapular ligament, while the nerve actually ran through the suprascapular foramen. Now, it entered the supraspinous fossa and then contributed to the anastomosis at that point, and also through the spinoglenoid node was also able to access the infraspinous fossa. Now let's look at the part of the axillary artery that is involved in this anastomosis. The part of axillary artery involved in this anastomosis is a subscapular artery. Now this is subscapular artery. That's a subscapular artery we have here. The subscapular artery, as we've already noted in our earlier lecture, has these two terminal branches. These are those two terminal branches. The branch we have here, which is called the circumflex scapular artery, and then the branch that is going down towards the latissimus dorsi, which is called the thoracodorsal artery. Now, circumflex scapular artery, after it entered through the upper triangular space, accessed both the infraspinous fossa and the subscapular fossa, giving branches to both fossa, contributing in the anastomosis in both fossa. Now, when we also consider some other contributions, we see contributions from the intercostal arteries at this point. So the descending thoracic aorta also forms part of the contributions to the scapular anastomosis by the intercostal arteries that gave little contributions to the scapular anastomosis. We also see this anastomosis happening around the acromion, that's at this point. In this anastomosis around the acromion, we still see the first part of subclavian artery with both second and third parts of axillary artery. Now we'll look at that anastomosis. This is the point of that anastomosis. In that anastomosis, we're seeing three branches. The first branch is the acromial branch from this is suprascapular artery. Then the first branch is the acromial branch of suprascapular artery. The second branch is the acromial branch of the posterior circumflex humeral artery. And the third branch is the acromial branch from the thoracoacromial artery. If you can recall, the thoracoacromial artery is from the second part of the axillary artery, while the posterior circumflex humeral artery is from the third part of the axillary artery. So this is also another anastomosis we see around the scapula, which is happening at the acromion. Thank you very much.